The transport shuddered as it exited faster than light travel. Inside the main cabin, the galaxy's best and brightest sat in tense silence. There were warriors from the granite-skinned Kelids, their forms like moving statues. There were sleek Vintari tacticians with large, calculating eyes. Among them, a single human girl sat calmly, her hands folded in her lap. Her name was Chaiyang. Her documents said she was from Hyangri, a small human farming colony on the edge of known space. Her file listed her skills as agricultural logistics and mechanical maintenance. She wore simple, dark gray pants and a sturdy jacket, perfect for working in engine rooms or fields. She looked utterly ordinary. The ship docked with a heavy clang. The doors opened to reveal a massive, metallic hangar bay. This was the Vermilion Star Academy. It was not a school for learning polite sciences. It was a forge for creating the Federation's most lethal strategic operatives. The air felt cold and smelled like ozone and metal. The new cadets formed a line on a wide, black platform. Before them stood Commander Tain. He was a Tarkilian, a species that looked like a humanoid lizard. His scales were a deep green, and his yellow eyes moved slowly over the group, missing nothing. He did not welcome them. "You are here because someone believes you have potential," Tain said, his voice a dry hiss. "This academy will test that belief. It will break it. More than 40% of you standing here today will not survive to see your second year. Some will die in training accidents. Some will fail in live exercises. This is not a tragedy. It is a filter." Chaiyang listened. She did not flinch. Her eyes were taking in everything. The way the light reflected off the floor, the faint hum of distant machinery, the tense posture of the cadets beside her. To her, this place was just a new set of systems. Very dangerous systems, but systems all the same. A junior officer began calling names from a data slate. Each cadet stepped forward, announced their homeworld and specialization. Kravon, planet, Kel Prime. Specialization, siege warfare. Lianara, planet, Vintar. Specialization, information synthesis. The names continued, a list of deadly skills and powerful worlds. Then the officer's voice paused. He looked at his slate, then at Commander Tain. Tain took the slate, his brow ridge lowering. The officer called the next name. Chaiyang. She took one step forward, her boots making a soft sound on the platform. Species human. Colony, Yangri. Specialization, agricultural and mechanical maintenance. For a moment, there was perfect silence. Then, a low murmur spread through the line. A Kelid warrior to her right let out a quiet, rumbling sound of disbelief. A Vintari nearby blinked its large eyes rapidly, a sign of confusion. They were all killers, spies, and geniuses, and among them was a farm technician. Commander Tain stared at her. His tongue flicked out, tasting the air, as if searching for the joke. "Explain," he hissed, not at her, but at the junior officer. "The record, it is verified, Commander. The Human Consortium nominated her. The assignment algorithm processed it. It is a valid enrollment." "It is a clerical error," Tain stated flatly. The finality in his voice was like a door slamming shut. He looked back at Chaiyang. "You are in the wrong place, human. This is not an academy for fixing harvesters." Chaiyang met his gaze. Her face was calm. "The notice said to report here. So I am here, sir." Her simple answer seemed to annoy him further. He stepped closer, looming over her. "Did you not hear what I said? More than 4 in 10 of you will die. The training is designed to push beings far stronger, far faster, and far more trained than you to their absolute limits. And then it pushes harder. You are a mistake. Your presence here is a waste of a valuable slot and will likely result in your messy and pointless death." He was trying to scare her. He was trying to make her break down and ask to leave. That was the real first test. Chaiyang's eyes did not waver. She listened to his words about the high-gravity drills, the live plasma simulations, the psychological warfare modules. She heard the descriptions of pain and terror and probable death. On her face, fear did not appear. Instead, something else began to happen. The corners of her mouth twitched. Then they lifted. It was not a nervous smile. It was a wide, genuine grin. It was the look of someone who has been given a fascinating, complex puzzle. It was the look of a technician who has just been shown a broken, humming, sparking piece of machinery that everyone else is too afraid to touch. Commander Tane saw the grin. It stopped his speech for a second. This was not the reaction he ever saw. Cadets trembled. They hardened their faces. They never grinned. "Do you find this funny?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "No, sir," Chaiyang said, her smile not fading. "I find it interesting. It sounds like a very complicated problem." To her, that's all it was. Problem. The problem of survival. The problem of dangerous instructors, hostile peers, and impossible tests. On Hyangri, problems were constant. A broken water recycler could kill a whole family. A failing reactor core could doom the entire colony. You did not cry. You rolled up your sleeves, looked at the parts you had, and you found a way to make it work. This academy, for all its terror, was just a bigger, shinier machine that wasn't working right for her. The grin on her face was pure, focused curiosity. The clerical chaos that sent her here felt like the first crucial step in a very interesting repair job. She was already looking for the tools. The first week at Vermilion Star Academy was designed to break people down. For Chaiyang, it was a catalog of failures. She was taken to the physical training center. It was a vast room with gravity generators that could multiply weight. The first test was simple. Lift a heavy metal bar. The Kelid warrior, Kravon, lifted the heaviest one with a grunt. Others struggled but managed. When it was Chaiyang's turn, she strained. Her muscles, used to lifting machine parts and crop sacks, shook. She could only lift the bar halfway before her arms gave out. Clattered to the floor. A few cadets snorted. A tall human male with a sharp, focused face watched without expression. His name was Ji-hoon. He was from a core human world, a star pupil of a famous military school. He had lifted his bar with perfect form. He looked at Chaiyang as if she were a speck of dust on his uniform. Next was weapons familiarization. They were given standard-issue plasma rifles. The instructor, a grim-faced Vintari, explained the settings. The target was 100 meters away. Chaiyang held the rifle. Felt strange. She was used to wrenches and welding torches. She aimed, fired, and missed the target completely. The plasma bolt hit the wall far to the left. Another cadet laughed outright. This one was a human named Quan. He was a senior cadet watching the new intake. He had a cruel smile. He had heard about the farming girl. Seeing her fail was a confirmation. "Perhaps you should try throwing a potato," Quan said loudly. Some others chuckled. Ji-hoon just shook his head slightly, a look of pity on his face. He believed in order and skill. Chaiyang had neither. The tactical simulations were worse. In a virtual room, a scenario would flash on the screens. An enemy attack here. A hostage situation there. The cadets had to shout solutions. Chaiyang was always silent. The solutions taught in the manuals were about force concentration, flanking maneuvers, and tech superiority. They assumed you had troops or ships or gadgets. Her mind didn't work that way. Her mind looked at the environment in the simulation, the pipes on the walls, the power conduits, the air vents. But she said nothing. By the end of the week, she was a ghost. No one partnered with her in exercises. During meals, she sat alone. Ji-hoon and his friends, a group of top cadets, sat at another table. They talked about theory and scores. Chaiyang's name was only mentioned as a joke. "The gardener," Quan called her. Ji-hoon would just say, "A tragic error. She will be gone soon." Then came the first live survival exercise. They were dropped in teams into the green section, a dangerous training zone on the academy grounds. It was a dense, artificial jungle filled with hidden pitfalls and automated predator drones. The goal was simple: reach the extraction point in 20 hours. Survive. Chaiyang was put on a team with 3 others, a Vintari, a Kelid, and a human from a low-gravity world. They ignored her from the start. The Kelid, named Goran, took the lead, smashing through thick vines. "Stay close, do not slow us down," he rumbled at her. They moved fast, following standard patrol formation. Chaiyang followed at the back. But her eyes weren't watching the others. She was looking at the plants. She saw familiar-looking weeds with thick roots. She saw a tree with a bark that peeled in a certain way. On Hyangri, knowing plants meant knowing what was safe to eat, what could heal a wound, what could poison you. When the others stopped to check their high-tech location units, she quietly dug up some roots with her knife and put them in her pocket. When they passed a stream, she examined the mud at the edge. A few hours in, they heard the buzzing of a predator drone. It was a small, flying machine with a painful stinger. The team dove for cover behind a large rock. The drone scanned the area. Their instructions said to either destroy it with precise fire or evade using heat-masking cloaks. They had no cloaks, and firing would give away their position to other dangers. The team leader, the Vintari, was calculating the risk. Chaiyang looked at the rock they hid behind. It wasn't a rock. It was a mass of hardened resin and mud, built by large insect-like creatures native to the zone. She knew from the brief academy packet that these creatures were territorial but blind. They hunted by vibration. While the others watched the drone, Chaiyang took her knife and slammed the handle hard against the resin rock 3 times. A deep, thumping sound echoed. "What are you doing?" The Vintari hissed. From a hole at the base of the rock, 3 large, angry insects crawled out. They sensed the vibrations of the hovering drone immediately. They launched themselves at it. The drone was programmed for cadets, not native fauna. It was swarmed and pulled to the ground, disabled. The team stared. They had not fired a shot. Their position was still secret. They simply walked away while the insects dismantled the drone. Later, they needed shelter for the night. The others looked for a cave. Chaiyang looked up. She found a cluster of giant, broad leaves high in the trees. Using vines and her knowledge of knots from rigging farm equipment, she quickly wove a platform between the branches. She layered the broad leaves overhead for camouflage from aerial scans. It was not a standard military shelter. It was a nest. That night, as they huddled on the platform, scanning devices passed below them. The heat signatures were confused by the thick leaves. The team went undetected. In the morning, they reached the extraction point. They were the last team to arrive, but they arrived without injuries or alarms. The other teams looked battered. Some had fought drones. Others had fallen into pits. Commander Tain reviewed the results. He saw Chaiyang's team's data. No weapon discharges. No use of standard evasion tech. But also no contact with the enemy. He saw the log of the drone's destruction by native fauna. He saw the strange, biological heat signature of their shelter. He looked at Chaiyang. She was standing quietly at the back of her team, her clothes dirty, a smudge of mud on her cheek. She was not celebrating. She was just waiting to be dismissed. Ji-hoon's team had come in first. He was clean, efficient, perfect. But as he walked past Chaiyang, he glanced at her. For the first time, his look was not pity or dismissal. It was a flicker of confusion. She had not followed any rule he knew. She had used the jungle itself as a tool. It made no sense to him. It was not in the manuals. Yet it had worked. Chaiyang caught his look. She did not smile this time. She simply gave him a small, polite nod, as if acknowledging a fellow worker on a job site. Then she turned and walked away, already thinking about the next problem. The first major evaluation was called the Holdfast. The cadets were divided into teams of 4. Their mission was simple: defend a small, pre-built fort for 12 hours against waves of automated attackers. The fort was an old, square building made of dense concrete. It had one heavy door and narrow windows for shooting. It was a test of firepower, discipline, and traditional defense. Chaiyang looked at her team assignment. Her heart sank a little. She was with Ji-hoon, the perfect cadet. She was with Kwon, the senior who hated her. The fourth was a quiet Vintari named Nara. Ji-hoon took command immediately. He looked at Chaiyang as if she were a piece of broken equipment. "You will stay in the central room," he said, his voice cold. "Do not touch anything. Do not give away our position. Your only job is to not be a problem. Quan smirked. Maybe we can use her as bait. Throw her out the door to slow them down. Nara said nothing, already checking her weapons charged. Chaiyang did not argue. She simply nodded. While the others started moving ammunition crates and setting up firing positions at the windows, she did something else. She walked through the empty fort. She wasn't looking for weapons. She was reading the walls. The fort was not built for this exercise. It was old, repurposed. She could see patches in the walls where pipes had been removed. She saw vents that were sealed shut. In a back room, she found a large, inactive control panel covered in dust. Its labels were in an old script, but she could guess the symbols for environmental control and atmosphere processing. Her mind, trained to understand how systems connected, started to piece it together. This fort was once a sealed habitat for a species that breathed a different air, probably a methane mix. The processing system was still here, just shut off. Outside, the sound of the first wave of attackers began. They were rolling drones, firing low-grade stun bolts. Ji-hoon's voice was sharp and clear. Positions 1 and 2, fire. Nara, watch the east flank. Chaiyang ignored the noise. She studied the environmental panel. The main power was off, but a secondary backup cell still showed a faint glow. It was like finding a forgotten battery in an old, broken tractor. She opened a small toolkit she always carried. It had a multi-wrench, wire strippers, and tape. She wasn't supposed to have it, but no one had checked. She began to work. She bypassed the safety locks on the old panel. She rerouted the backup power to the main atmospheric pumps. She found the sealed intake valves for the external air and manually cranked them open. The system was designed to take in the planet's natural air, which was rich in a harmless, but very smelly, sulfur compound, and filter it. She was about to run it backwards. Ji-hoon was busy. His team was perfect. They dropped the first wave of drones with precise shots. He felt a surge of confidence. This was warfare. This was control. He glanced back into the dark interior of the fort. He saw Chaiyang hunched over the old panel, her hands moving quickly. Foolish girl, he thought, hiding in the dark while real soldiers work. The second wave of attackers was announced. These were faster, crawling drones that could climb the walls. They will try the roof.
Ji-hoon shouted.
Quan reposition. Chaiyang finished her work. She had reconnected the filters incorrectly. The system would now pull air from outside, mix it with the leftover cleaning chemicals still in the pipes, and blow it into the fort unfiltered. It wouldn't be toxic to any of the species present, but it would be intensely, horribly foul. She took a deep breath of the still clean air and pressed the activation rune. A deep groan echoed through the fort. Then a hiss. From every vent, from every sealed pipe opening, a thick, yellowish mist began to pour into the rooms. He hit Ji-hoon first. He was by a window. The smell was like rotten eggs, burnt hair, and sour milk all mixed together. It was so strong it felt like a physical slap. His eyes watered instantly. He gagged, choking on the air. "What is that?" Quan yelled. Then he started coughing violently. Nara, the Vintari, made a high-pitched sound of distress. Her species had a very sensitive sense of smell. She stumbled back from her position, completely blinded by the stench. The gas filled the fort in seconds. It was impossible to see through. It was impossible to breathe without retching. Ji-hoon, tears streaming down his face, tried to give an order but could only cough. Outside, the attacking drones rolled closer. They were programmed to detect movement and heat signatures. But now, the fort was a cloud of dense, smelly gas. Their sensors could not see inside. They could not find clear targets. They paused at the edge of the gas cloud, circling in confusion. Inside, the cadets were on their knees, helpless. The defense had completely collapsed. But so had the attack. The exercise ground to a chaotic, smelly halt. A loud horn blared. The simulation was over. The vents stopped pumping. Large fans turned on, slowly clearing the air. Commander Tane and the other instructors entered the fort. They wore breathing masks, They found the 4 cadets in a miserable heap on the floor, red-eyed and gasping. Chaiyong was among them, also affected, though she seemed to be recovering faster. Tane looked at the disabled drones outside. He looked at the old environmental panel, its wires hanging out. He looked at the utterly defeated, stinking team. Who, Tane hissed, his voice muffled by his mask, is responsible for this failure of combat? Ji-hoon, humiliated and angry, pointed a shaking finger at Chaiyong. She did it. She was tampering. She poisoned us. All eyes turned to Chaiyong. She wiped her eyes, stood up, and faced Commander Tane. I used the system, she said, her voice hoarse from the gas. The fort was a tool. The environmental controls were a tool. I used all the tools available to stop the attack, sir. Tane stared at her. He had seen many things. He had never seen a cadet win by making their own position uninhabitable. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't a clean defeat either. It was a bizarre, stinking draw. You broke the exercise, Tane said. The exercise was to defend the fort, Chaiyong replied, still coughing slightly. The fort is still here. The attackers did not enter. A long silence followed. Quan was glaring hate at her. Nara looked shell-shocked. Ji-hoon's face was a mask of fury and shame. He had followed every rule. And a farm girl with a wrench had broken the entire game with a smell. Commander Tane finally turned and walked out, his tail twitching in clear irritation. But as he left, one of the junior instructors saw something. He saw Commander Tane's shoulders shake slightly. Was it anger? Or was it, just for a second, something else? It was hard to tell behind the mask. But for the first time, the absolute order of the Vermilion Star Academy had been disrupted not by superior force, but by a simple, terrible, and very creative smell. A new kind of silence followed Chaiyong after the holdfast. It was not the silence of being ignored. It was the silence of being watched. Cadets would stop talking when she walked into a room. They didn't mock her to her face anymore. They just stared, unsure what to make of her. She had broken a major exercise. She hadn't won, but she hadn't lost in the right way either. It was confusing. Ji-hoon avoided her completely. His failure in his mind was absolute. He had been the commander. His defense had fallen apart because of a member of his own team. The shame burned him more than any physical injury. He buried himself in the library, studying advanced tactics, trying to purify his understanding of war. Quan, however, was not quiet. His anger was hot and public. In the mess hall, he would talk loudly to his friends. She's a cheater, a saboteur. She doesn't belong in a war. She belongs in a garbage processing plant. That's all she knows how to do. Make a stink. Chaiyong heard it all. She said nothing. She ate her food, her mind often elsewhere, thinking about the academy's wiring or its water recycling system, or the hum of its power generators. A new cadet started to take an interest. Her name was Sujin. She was a human girl from a world known for its diplomats and spies. She was small, with sharp, observant eyes. She was top of her class in xenopsychology, the study of how different species think. While others saw a mistake or a cheater, Sujin saw a pattern. She watched Chaiyong in the common areas. She saw how Chaiyong's eyes tracked the cleaning drones along the ceiling, noting their path. She saw how Chaiyong would sometimes touch a wall where a faint vibration hummed, as if listening to the building's heartbeat. One day, Sujin sat down across from her at a table. Chaiyong was looking at a simple noodle soup, stirring it slowly. You're not trying to win, Sujin said. Her voice was quiet, but clear. Chaiyong looked up. The exercise said to defend the fort, right? But everyone else is trying to win with honor, with skill. You are just trying to stop the other side. It's different. Sujin leaned forward. You see this whole place as a machine, don't you? And you're just trying to find the loose wire to pull. For the first time, Chaiyong looked directly at someone with real interest. She gave a small shrug. If a machine is trying to crush you, you don't build a better machine in 5 minutes. You find a rock to jam in its gears. Sujin smiled. It was a real smile. I'd like to see that. Their chance came soon. The next major drill was called Deep Scan. It was a zero-gravity retrieval exercise inside the Academy's large orbital simulation chamber. The chamber was a huge, dark sphere, filled with floating debris, old ship parts, chunks of metal, broken satellites. The goal was for two-person teams to locate a small, blinking data core hidden somewhere in the mess and bring it back to the start gate. The catch: a powerful jamming field filled the chamber. Standard communicators and scanner goggles showed only static. You were blind, deaf, and floating. Ji-hoon was paired with a Vintari partner. They had a plan. They would use physical tether lines, hand signals, and move in slow, careful sweeps. It was a good, textbook plan for silent operations. Kwon was paired with a strong Kelid. Their plan was brute force. They would kick off from large pieces of debris, covering ground quickly, hoping to blunder into the core. Chae-young looked at her partner assignment. It was Soo-jin. Soo-jin just nodded, her eyes bright. "Show me your rock," she said. The teams entered the airlock and floated into the dark, silent chaos. Immediately, the jamming hit. Chae-young's helmet comms filled with a loud, hissing roar. Her scanner display was a blur of rainbow colors. She could only see what was within arm's reach in the glow of her suit lights. She held onto a twisted beam of metal. Soo-jin floated next to her, waiting. Chae-young closed her eyes inside her helmet. She was not listening for the core. She was listening to the jammer. The hiss in her ears wasn't random. It had a rhythm, a constant, pulsing carrier wave underneath the noise. It was the sound of the jamming signal itself, powerful and steady. On Hyangri, they had old radios. When a solar flare would hit, it would cause static. But sometimes you could tap the microphone in a pattern short, long, short, and the static would crackle in that same pattern. You could send a basic signal right through the noise. She opened her eyes. She pointed at Soo-jin, then pointed to a large, flat piece of hull plating floating nearby. She mimed pushing it. Then she pointed to the airlock door behind them and made a clicking motion with her hand. Soo-jin understood immediately. She didn't know the plan, but she understood the roles. She was to be the messenger. Chae-young kicked off to the hull plate. She positioned herself at its edge. This was her tool. She looked at the airlock door. It was a large, round hatch. When it opened or closed, it would make a small pressure change, a tiny burst of energy in the chamber. She waited. She watched the other teams. Ji-hoon was moving with careful grace, but slowly. Kwon was already far away. A distant flicker of light. Chae-young took a deep breath. She slammed both of her boots against the hull plate, pushing it toward the airlock door. The plate drifted slowly across the chamber. It was not fast. It was not impressive. It clanged softly against the airlock door. Inside the control room, a sensor registered an impact on the exterior of the airlock. A safety light blinked. It was a minor event, not worth an alarm. But for Chae-young, it was a signal. One impact, a single pulse through the jammed field. She watched Soo-jin. Soo-jin watched her. Chae-young swam over, retrieved the plate, and did it again. Clang. A pause. Then clang, clang, clang. A simple code. 1 for look here. 3 for core here. It was painfully slow. It was ridiculously simple. While Ji-hoon used perfect silent hand signals, and Kwon used pure speed, Chae-young was using a floating piece of junk as a giant Morse code key. For an hour, they worked. Soo-jin would search the area near where the plate had hit. Nothing. Chae-young would move the plate, try again. Clang. Clang, clang. Then, on the 17th try, Soo-jin's suit light flashed wildly. She had found it. The data core was magnetically stuck inside a shattered engine nozzle. She grabbed it. Chae-young saw the flashing light. She positioned the hull plate one last time. Clang, 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 clang. A rapid series of impacts. The signal for retreat. Together, they pushed and pulled their way back to the start gate. They were not fast. They were the second-to-last team to return. But they returned with the core. Ji-hoon's team returned empty-handed, exhausted from their meticulous search. Kwon's team never found it. Commander Tane reviewed the data. He saw no communication logs. He saw no scanner use. He saw only the repeated, minor impacts on the airlock door, and the path of two cadets moving in response to them. He called Chaiyang and Sujin forward. Explain. Chaiyang spoke. The jammer was a sound. A steady sound. We used the sound. We made a new signal inside it by hitting the door. It was just a pressure change. A tap in the static. Tane was silent for a long time. Jihoon stood with his team, his face pale. He had used the perfect, approved method for silent ops. It had failed. Chaiyang had used the equivalent of knocking on a pipe. It had worked. He looked at Chaiyang not with anger this time, but with a dawning, terrible realization. The rulebook he worshipped was just one tool, and she was using a completely different toolbox. Sujin stood beside Chaiyang. A small, satisfied smile on her face. She had been right. The farm girl didn't play the game. She changed the rules of the board itself. The academy was a maze of polished metal, harsh lights, and echoing footsteps. Chaiyang moved through it like a quiet shadow. After the deep scan exercise, the stares were heavier, more intense. Some held curiosity, like Sujin's. Most held suspicion or open hostility, like Kwan's. She needed a place to breathe. On a routine mapping drill, her patrol route passed a sealed maintenance wing. A faded sign read, Sector 7H, Hydroponics, offline. The door was locked, but the keypad was old. With a few minutes of careful work with her multi-tool, she bypassed the simple lock. The door slid open with a tired groan. The air that washed out was stale but carried a faint, forgotten smell of green life. The room was a disaster. It was a large, circular chamber with a shattered glass ceiling. Broken growth trays were stacked like bones. Snaked across the floor were dead vines, dry as dust. A control console was blackened, hit by some past fire. This place had not been touched in years. To the other cadets, it was a useless, dead space. To Chaiyang, it was a project. It became her secret. In the few hours of free time between brutal training sessions, she would come here. She started with the basics. She cleared the debris, sweeping the dead plants into piles. She found a working water line behind a wall panel and fixed a leak. She repaired a broken light bank, one diode at a time, until a soft, blue-white glow filled one corner of the room. She brought seeds. Not from the academy, but from her personal pouch, the one she had brought from Hyangri. Small, hardy things. A fast-growing leafy green, a creeping plant that could fix nitrogen in the poor soil substitute, a tuber that didn't need much light. Her hands, which fumbled with plasma rifles, were sure and steady here. She mixed nutrients. She calibrated the drip lines she built from spare tubing. She talked to the sprouts in a low, humming voice, the same way she used to talk to bulky colony generators. One afternoon, Sujin found her. The smaller girl had simply followed her, curious. She stood in the doorway, watching Chaiyang carefully tying a delicate vine to a support stick. So this is where you disappear to? Sujin said softly. Chaiyang didn't jump. She just nodded, her focus on the knot. It's quiet. Sujin walked in, her boots crunching on the clean floor. She saw the orderly rows in the repaired trays. She saw the green against the gray. It was a tiny, defiant pocket of life in a place designed for death. You're fixing it. It was broken, Chaiyang said, as if that explained everything. She stood up, wiping her hands on her pants. Sit. The bench is clean. Sujin sat. For a while, they just listened to the gentle hum of the lights and the soft drip-drip of water. It was the most peaceful sound in the entire academy. Why did they send you here, Chaiyang? Sujin finally asked. Really? Chaiyang sat beside her, looking at her plants. The letter said I was chosen for my adaptive problem-solving skills. I think someone read a report about how I fixed our colony's main reactor during a dust storm and just put my name in the wrong file. Clerical error. Just numbers on a screen. But you're not trying to leave. Where would I go? Chaiyang said. This is the assignment. She reached out and touched a leaf. They think they made a mistake. They sent a farmer to a warrior school. They see a tool that doesn't fit. And what do you see? Sujin asked. Chaiyang was silent for a long moment. I see a system. A very big, very complicated system. It's built to make perfect warriors. It assumes it has perfect parts. Strong parts. Smart parts. It doesn't know what to do with a part that's a different shape. She looked at Sujin. On a farm, when the only wrench you have is too big for the bolt, you don't give up. You wrap cloth around the bolt. You use a different grip. You find a way to make the force transfer. So you're the wrong wrench? Sujin said. Understanding dawning. Chaiyang nodded. They threw a wrench into their perfect machine. They think it will break things. And they're right. A faint, familiar grin touched her lips. But a wrench can also be used to jam the gears. To stop a machine that's running out of control. Maybe that's what a place like this needs. Not just another gear that turns the right way, but something that can stop it. Sujin stared at her. In that moment, she saw past the dirty clothes and the calm face. She saw a deep, powerful mind. Not a tactical mind like Jihoon's, but a systemic mind. Chaiyang didn't see enemies and allies. She saw causes and effects, inputs and outputs, pressure points and overloads. You're not here to learn to be a soldier, Sujin whispered. No, Chaiyang agreed. I'm here because the machine is broken. It just doesn't know it yet. It only knows how to make things that break other things. I know how to fix things. She looked around her tiny garden. Or how to grow new ones. They sat together until the lights dimmed for the night cycle. As they left, Sujin looked back at the little green shoots in the sterile room. It was a sign. A quiet, growing rebellion. Chaiyang secured the door. Her face was calm, but her mind was turning. She had explained her truth to one person. It was a risk, but Sujin was not like the others. She was an observer. She understood that sometimes the most important thing on a battlefield wasn't the strongest weapon, but the one nobody saw coming, the wrench in the gears waiting to be used. The quiet ended with a shock siren. It was not a drill. The sound was different. A piercing, urgent wail that echoed through the academy's halls. Cadets scrambled from their quarters, confusion on their faces. They were assembled in the main hangar, not by instructors, but by armed security officers. Commander Tane stood on a platform, his scales tight against his skull. The air was cold with real tension. A civilian diplomat transport, the Starbreaker, has been seized. Tane's voice cut through the murmurs. The pirate vessel Iron Maw is holding it against the docks of the Serenity Way Station. They are shielded. They have hostages. Our forces are mobilizing, but the situation is delicate. You will not be on the front line. You will operate support drones and monitor comms from the forward command shuttle. This is not a simulation. Follow your orders. It was real. The wargames were over. Chaiyang was assigned to a cramped shuttle, the Swift, along with Jihoon, Sujin, Quan, and a few others. Their job was mundane, to control observation drones and keep communication channels clear between the command ship and the assault teams. Through the shuttle's view screen, they could see the way station, a donut-shaped structure floating in the dark. Clamped to its side like a nasty parasite was the Iron Maw, a scarred ship bristling with weapons. A shimmering blue energy barrier surrounded it, a military-grade shield. Two larger Federation battleships hung a safe distance away, their weapons ready but useless. A direct attack would vaporize the Iron Maw and the hostage ship docked with it. The command channel was full of tense voices. Shield analysis? A senior officer barked. It is drawing massive power, sir. It can deflect anything we throw at it. We cannot get a shot through. Hostage status? Unclear. The Maw is jamming internal scans. Jihoon listened, his jaw tight. He ran scenarios in his head. Precision strike on the shield generator. Impossible, it was deep inside the ship. Boarding action? The shield would block it. Every textbook solution hit the wall of that glowing blue barrier. Quan just cursed softly, his hands gripping the back of a chair. We should just blast them. The hostages. It's a risk of war. Sujin watched the data streams. Her face pale but focused. Chaiyang was silent. She was not looking at the tactical displays. She was looking at a secondary screen showing the way station's public energy grid. It was a boring, civilian schematic. Power for lights, life support, gravity. One line on the schematic caught her eye. It was a thick conduit labeled Auxiliary and Waste Reclamation Feed, Docking Port 3. The iron maw was clamped to docking port 3. Her mind, trained to see connections, started to click pieces together. A shield that strong needed immense, steady power. The iron maw was a pirate raider, not a capital ship. Couldn't generate that much on its own for so long. It was leeching power. But from where? Not from its hostage. That ship's systems would be locked. It was tapping the station, pirating electricity. She began to type on her console, pulling up old public logs of the way station's power consumption. Her screen filled with numbers and graphs. What are you doing? Ji-hoon snapped, noticing her. Stick to your drone channel. She's trying to grow a flower to stop them, Kwon muttered. But the joke felt weak and hollow now. Chae-young ignored them. She found it. A spike in the way station's non-essential power drain. It matched the shield frequency. The iron maw was siphoning from the station's waste reclamation and auxiliary grid. Clever trick. It was using the station's own heart to keep its shield alive. Command was discussing a high-risk, high-casualty boarding plan using shielded pods. It was a suicide mission. Chae-young spoke, her voice quiet but clear in the shuttle. They are using the station's power. The auxiliary feed at docking port 3. Everyone turned. Ji-hoon stared at her. What? The shield. It's tied to the station's grid. It's not just their power. An officer on the command channel heard her. Explain, cadet. Chae-young's hands flew over the console, sending the data. The shield modulation syncs with the station's waste processing cycle. Every 42 seconds. They are using the civilian grid as a booster. It's a patch job. A messy one. A new voice, heavy with authority, came on the channel. It was Commander Tane on the command ship. What is your suggestion? Chae-young did not suggest a weapon. She did not suggest a troop maneuver. She said, we need to induce a local brownout. A controlled failure in the auxiliary grid coupling at port 3. For maybe 2 seconds. Just long enough for the shield to stutter. It's a civilian utility node. Its security is different. We can hack it remotely. The silence on the channel was absolute. You want to hack a garbage processing power line? The senior officer said, disbelief dripping from his voice. Yes, sir, Chae-young said. It's the cable they're using. We cut the cable, their shield flickers. It's not a military system. They won't expect it. Ji-hoon looked from Chae-young to the view screen, his mind racing. It was insane. It was not warfare. It was sabotage of a public utility. But it was also a direct attack on the enemy's actual weakness, not their perceived strength. Commander Tane's voice returned. Do it. Cadet Ji-hoon, you have the best system infiltration scores. Make it happen. Cadet Sujin, guide him through the civilian network protocols. You have 90 seconds before the assault pods are launched. Ji-hoon felt a cold sweat. This was not in the manual. But the order was given. He sat down, his fingers finding the console. Sujin was beside him, her voice quick and soft, explaining the way station's old, commercial-grade software. Chae-young watched. She had found the loose wire. Now others had to pull it. On screen, the shield glowed steadily. Ji-hoon's brow was furrowed in concentration. He bypassed a simple firewall. He found the coupling control. Ready? He said, his voice tight. On my mark, Commander Tane said. 3, 2, 1. Ji-hoon sent the command. It was not a virus. It was an overload command, followed by a rapid reset sequence. A digital version of turning a faulty breaker off and on. On the schematic, the power line to docking port 3 spiked red, then went black for a heartbeat. Out in the dark, the iron maw's brilliant blue shield flickered. It stuttered like a dying light. For 1, 2 seconds, it vanished. It was enough. The Federation battleships did not fire. But the prepositioned, fast boarding crafts did. They shot through the space where the shield had been, clamping onto the pirate ship's hull before the barrier could restabilize. The assault was inside. On the shuttle, the cadets held their breath. The command channel erupted with new, sharp voices. Boarding teams are in. Shield is back up, but we're inside. The battle was not over, but the impossible standoff was broken. Not by a bigger gun, but by a clever cut to a power cable. Ji-hoon leaned back, his hands shaking. He looked at Cha-young. She was not celebrating. She was just watching the screen, her head tilted, as if listening to a machine that had finally stopped making a bad noise. Kwon was silent, his earlier sneer gone, replaced by a look of shocked understanding. Sujin let out a long, slow breath and gave Cha-young a small, knowing nod. The wrench had found the gears, and for 2 seconds it had jammed them perfectly. A week later, the silence in Commander Tane's office was thick enough to feel. Cha-young stood at attention before his desk. The only sound was the low hum of the climate control. Tane looked at a data slate, his reptilian face unreadable. The hostage crisis was over. The pirates were captured. The official reports were full of praise for the boarding teams, the negotiators, the battleship commanders. The footnote about a support cadet's power grid analysis was buried deep. Tane put the slate down, his yellow eyes fixed on her. The clerical error has been identified and corrected, he said, his voice a dry rustle. Your file was never meant for Vermilion Star. It was meant for the Orbital Engineering Corps. Your assignment has been changed. You will transfer in 48 hours. He waited for a reaction. Relief, disappointment, fear. Cha-young's face showed none of those things. It was calm, like still water. She simply nodded. Yes, sir. The door to the office slid open. Tane had not called for anyone. Ji-hoon stood there, still in his training uniform. His posture was stiff, but his eyes were clear. Commander, a word. Tane's tongue flicked out. This is not your appointed time, cadet. I know, sir. Ji-hoon stepped inside. He did not look at Cha-young. Regarding the transfer, it is a mistake. The original enrollment was the mistake, Tane corrected. No, sir, Ji-hoon said, and the word hung in the air. He finally looked at Cha-young, then back at his commander. The mistake was ours. We defined a warrior as a weapon, a gun, a ship, a missile. We defined the battlefield as a place where only those things matter. He took a sharp breath. She is not a weapon. She is something else. A tool we did not have a name for. Before Tane could respond, another figure appeared at the door. Sujin. Permission to enter, sir. She didn't wait for it. She walked in and stood beside Ji-hoon. He is correct, Commander. In xenopsychology, we study patterns of thought. Her pattern is unique here. It is not offensive. It is adaptive interference. In a galaxy of predictable enemies, that is a tactical advantage we just threw away. Then came Kwon. The senior cadet stood in the doorway, his usual arrogance gone, replaced by a grim respect. He didn't enter fully. He just spoke from the threshold. She jammed the gears, sir. We spent years learning to be the best gears in the galaxy. We never learned how to stop a machine. She can. We need that. Tane looked from one face to another. The top of the class. The perfect soldier. The cunning psychologist. The traditionalist. All standing for the farm girl. He turned his gaze back to Cha-young. You do not fight, he stated. I solve problems, sir, she replied, her voice quiet. On Hyangri, a problem could be a broken water pump, or a blight on the crops, or a pirate ship with a shield. The scale is different. The process is the same. Look at the system. Find the point of failure. Apply pressure. You would teach others to solve problems like this? Tane asked, a hint of something new in his voice. Not scorn, curiosity. I could try, she said. I could teach them to see the pipes behind the walls, to listen to the hum of the machines, to know that sometimes the strongest lock has the cheapest key. Commander Tane was silent for a long time. He looked at the transfer order on his screen. The clean, easy solution. Send the error away. Restore the perfect order of his academy. Then he looked at the 4 cadets. Ji-hoon, who had learned humility. Sujin, who saw value in chaos. Kwon, who respected a different kind of strength. And Cha-young, who stood waiting, not pleading, just ready for the next task. He reached out a clawed hand. He pressed a button on his console. The transfer order on the screen dissolved into pixels and vanished. The error, Tane said slowly, is not in the file. It is in our doctrine. He stood up. You will not transfer to the engineering corps, Cadet Chaiyong. Her expression did not change, but a light seemed to brighten behind her eyes. And you will not continue as a standard cadet, he continued. You have broken every standard we have. Instead, you will design a new course. Applied Adaptive Systems. You will have a workshop. You will have access to broken equipment, old schematics, and problematic scenarios. A faint, almost invisible twitch moved the scales near his mouth. It might have been the ghost of a smile. You will teach anyone foolish enough to sign up how to think like the wrench in the gears, how to find the cheap key, how to listen to the machine. He sat back down. Dismissed. Ji-hoon, Su-jin, and Kwon filed out, their faces showing a mix of triumph and awe. Chaiyong was the last to leave. At the door, she stopped. She turned back. For the first time in front of the commander, her wide, genuine grin returned. It was not a grin of victory, but of pure, undiluted interest. Thank you, sir, she said. It sounds like a very interesting problem. She left his office. The door hissed shut behind her. The corridor of the Vermilion Star Academy stretched before her, all polished metal and harsh echoes. But now she did not see a maze. She saw a machine, a vast, complex, slightly broken machine. And she had just been given permission to fix it, to teach others to fix it, to grow a whole garden of wrenches. She walked down the hall, her steps light. The grin on her face softened into a small, steady smile. The clerical chaos had not sent her to the right place by accident. It had sent her home.